as a person in the media, what's been your role in, with social media coming into play, different methods, maybe newspapers dying, as people are saying? How do you assess all these changes that are happening in the media and coverage right now?
Well, social media is a huge change because it changes the delivery method. It takes out any barrier between, say, an athlete and the public, and it lets us as reporters communicate with people a lot more quickly and in really any time we want, as opposed to having to wait for the newscast or wait for the newspaper to drop on your doorstep the next morning. So that's a huge shift in the way people think and the way people talk and the way people process information. With newspapers, a lot of people turning to websites now for their information. That's just more content delivery. Okay, so you're not getting the article in the paper when you pick it up in the morning. Maybe you're going to work instead or going to school and clicking on the website, but it's still kind of the same thing. It's a lot of the same people writing those articles, and it's getting to you in somewhat the same format. It's just electronic and opposed to paper. So some of those changes are real subtle, even though they seem big. In fact, the actual change isn't that big. It's more just the way the content's delivered, and some of them are huge because the way with social media changes the game in terms of how people talk to each other. And I think that part's great because anytime you put more information out there, that's great for us as journalists, right? I mean, the more things that you can hear an athlete say in the field I do in sports, isn't that better? Don't you want to know more? Don't you want to get a more inside look into their lives and their sport and what they're doing and talking about? Bring it on, more the better.
We see some of these recruits now, on Facebook they'll post something, or on Twitter they'll post something, and it ends up costing them their scholarship. What do you think that the effect that social media is having on the recruiting game as well?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I've heard some coaches, in fact, I think Pat Fitzgerald has said that you can use Twitter and Facebook and social media to weed out what kind of players you want here, because by 17 years old, you should be responsible enough to understand, you know what, if I put something on the internet, it will be permanent and everybody can see it. Those are concepts that most teenagers are pretty aware of by now. So the idea that a recruit wouldn't realize that or put something on there carelessly, in some ways it's another way for coaches and the public to gather information about what kind of kid this is. So it's an interesting two-way street.
In terms of other kind of big topics that are affecting the college game, we have the booster scandal with the University of Miami, and we have the sex abuse scandals with Syracuse and Penn State. I guess talk a little bit about those, and as a person in the media, how you guys cover those and how you manage fair balance and coverage.
Yeah, I mean, those are, again, situations where the more critical and sensitive the situation is, the more important it is to be right, as opposed to racing to be first. It's great to be first, or it's great to be near the beginning and leading the way on a story, but you have to be right. So that's the most important thing when you're covering a story like that. And then especially with what's going on at Syracuse or what happened at Penn State, don't stop digging, because the next phone call, the next thing that you uncover could lead you somewhere that's really important. And always ask why. Why did they do something? If you look at Penn State, they told Jerry Sandusky, hey, you can't be on campus with children. Well, why would they do that? We now know why, of course, but if in the moment that information somehow got to someone, then you have to keep digging and find out why.